Hi, I'm Sarah Cowgill, along with Andrew Moran, Dave Patterson, Graham Noble, and John Clark. And this is The Conservative Five, an online TV production of Liberty Nation News. Inauguration Day was a joyous occasion for a lot of people, including Donald Trump and his entourage. He promised to usher in another golden age of peace and prosperity, and as Joe Biden and Kamala Harris looked on with disdain, to also fix what they messed up. It was one heck of a day, from tea with the old guard to dancing to the village people. So let's flip this up, John Clark, and start with the ceremony. Give me some best parts from your perspective.
Well, I have to say, I've not generally watched these things, but I was really, really struck by the musical celebration. It was overtly Christian. I'm a Christian, and the Battle Hymn of the Republic was so potent, and the lyrics that "Let us die that all be free" is just so kind of capturing the patriotism that I hope is uniting people. And as I watched, I was looking at the military personnel. My daughter's in the service. You don't always get to pick where your politics are. And I was wondering if those people were all united in that sentiment. And the next day, my dad called me and told me he watched it for 4 hours and that he really enjoyed the pomp. Well, that's interesting because my dad's a dyed-in-the-wool Biden-loving Democrat. He's also a U.S. Marine. As you may know, he's battling cancer that he picked up, multiple myeloma, in the Corps. And to have him say that, and then I reminded him, he used to sing that song to me. But for me, the high point was Donald Trump with a knife chopping a cake, doing the Polish people. I mean, our nation needs some humor, and some can't take it. So I just thought there was so much joy.
A little bit of joy goes a long way, doesn't it?
It was like, we're not going to let you crush our joy today, and you're welcome to join in if you want. And if not, well, maybe next month or maybe next year, but give us a shot and let's try to find that common ground that didn't used to annoy people if we sang patriotic songs. So to me, it was very refreshing.
I think I'd have to agree with you. Okay, now I want to kind of adjourn to the signing of executive orders, and I know Graham wants to talk a little bit about that.
Well, yeah, of course, and day one, as was promised, Trump did a kind of signed an avalanche of executive orders, most of which were signed back at the White House. Although interestingly, they did sign a few. The first few that were signed in the Capital One Stadium in Washington D.C. there, which I thought was interesting because I always thought, well, Trump said he's going to sign like 100 executive orders on day one. How is he going to do that? Because Inauguration Day itself, the ceremonies and the traditions, that's an all-day thing. It's like, how are you going to fit it in? So I thought it was interesting that they kind of integrated the signing of those first few executive orders in as part of the celebration. And I'm sure the crowd that was still there in Capital One Stadium enjoyed that because, they kind of made a spectacle out of it. And how many regular Americans ever get to see a president actually sign an executive order?
Exactly.
On TV.
How to throw pens to the audience. That was cool.
And then throw out the pens to the audience. Yeah, that was kind of cool.
That was kind of cool. And another thing I want to just briefly touch on that was kind of controversial was the J6 pardons. What do you think about that?
Well, if you're asking me, I'm all for it. I'm absolutely very glad that he basically. I think there's a few of the J6 detainees, let's call them. I prefer to call them political prisoners, but a few of the detainees. They didn't get full pardons. I think their sentences have been commuted, and they're still kind of it's a case by case under consideration basis. I think that's some of the ones who were charged with, particularly specific acts of, assaulting police officers or vandalizing the building or whatever. But, a lot of these people got railroaded and I'm so glad that Trump basically pretty much gave a blanket pardon to the whole lot of them, because that whole thing was one of the greatest abuses of the criminal justice system in American history, in my opinion.
I think this whole panel would agree with you on that. Andrew, let's talk about what the rest of the world thought about our inaugural with the joy and the and the pomp and the circumstances and all the smiles that were going on there. What's the rest of the world thinking?
Well, I'm very sure that the rest of the world is focusing on the executive orders, particularly on the trade front. Now, President Trump, I was going to say President Biden, but sorry, President Trump, he was supposed to impose sizable universal tariffs on the rest of the world, but that didn't happen. Instead, he signed a trade memorandum, which directs the Treasury, Homeland Security, and various other departments, agencies to study U.S. trade relations and currency policies of other countries, and no tariffs at all. But during his powwow with the press in that intimate White House setting, he said, yeah, I'm probably going to impose some tariffs on Canada and Mexico on February 1st. And then the following day, he said he was going to impose 10% tariffs on China. Now, the financial markets, they reacted positively because it looks like, as Scott Benson alluded to during the campaign, that he's softening his trade stance. So, Scott Benson, the U.S. Treasury nominee, he was talking about having tariffs layered in gradually, watering down this maximalist position, having targeted tariffs. And with his latest Russia comments, it seems like that's what he is doing. But overall, it was quite surprising because there was a press call earlier in the day, and they were alluding to some Wall Street Journal report, and it was supposed to have more tariff announcements going on, but that didn't happen. So it looks like for now he's softening his position on trade policy, and I guess more negotiations are happening on, because Justin Trudeau, Canada's prime minister, he said, okay, well, we're going to retaliate, and we're also going to shift from Heinz ketchup to French ketchup. So that's giving time for these genius politicians to consider other policies.
One of the things that I loved about this whole thing, this whole day, and I wonder if the LGBTQ is rethinking the fact that they might have to go to prison camps if this man got elected. I mean, the Village People, could you be any more indicative of an alternative culture? And they were invited and had a blast. I mean, as parties go, man, I'm sorry I missed it. So, where does this 47th celebration rank? And who had the best time with all the muckety mucks, do you think, Dave?
Well, I have an advantage. I attended Ronald Reagan's second inaugural, the galas, a couple of receptions, and the balls when I was in the military. And I went also to George W. Bush's second inaugural events. And so I have something to compare these events with. And I believe that the crowd that had the best time and appreciated the privilege to welcome President Trump and Vice President Vance were the military officers and enlisted attending the Commander-in-Chief's ball. That was special. And you could just tell the attendees were grateful that the 4 years of leadership darkness were over. We talk about joy. They were truly joyful. It was, in my view, the best celebration.
I think the only two people that didn't smile were Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. But, but still, they showed up. And a lot of them showed up. They didn't have to. And I give credit for putting aside all the snarkiness that has gone on for the last 4 years, all the meanness, all the lawsuits, everything that these people have all been through, whether any side of the aisle you're looking at. I thought it was a class act that they all showed up. Maybe didn't smile so much, but Bill Clinton smiled. He was having a good time.
Michelle Obama wasn't there.
Can I ask a question, Sarah?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but Trump didn't attend in 2020. What does that say about the class act? I'm asking.
I didn't think it was a class act because I think there was so much that people believed was so wrong with the 2020 election, and I'm not sure he would have ever. I don't think he would have done that. I think the Democrats are trying to prove they're better.
These are all applauding and smiling, despite saying that this was the last election in the future of the United States. So I find their reactions to the whole thing quite comical.
Well, I think we've passed the baton at least. I don't know.
Don't forget, in most of these events, there was free food. Never discount that.
I was invited to the Bill Clinton inaugural, the first go around, and I didn't go because I didn't have I was a lowly paid government staffer. I didn't have the money to get there, to stay there, and to get a dress. So I had to skip that. But in my older ages, I didn't get invited. So there's that. Anyway, well, Democrats and Republicans alike hope for the best in the next 4 years, whether they want to admit it or not. So let's usher in that golden age. Thanks, panel. Thanks for watching. That's it for our Conservative 5 panel today. Check out our other C5 shows and segments on your favorite video platform, YouTube, Vimeo, Rumble. We're on them all as well. Liberty Nation News has its own Roku channel where you can see all of our TV productions. Now, Liberty Nation does not endorse candidates, campaigns, or legislation, and this presentation is no endorsement. I'm your host, Sarah Cowgill. Thanks for joining us today. For the latest news and commentary, your choice for free thinking, free speech, libertynation.com.